you are now.
Hello out there.
You good?
Yep.
Okay. Call the meeting to order, and I ask that you join us for the pledge to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us this evening for our November board meeting. Do need to announce that we had an executive session immediately prior to this meeting. It was held to discuss some personnel matters, discussion on the manager's performance review and evaluation, on preliminary discussion on pay increases for 2025, and a brief discussion on the settlement that's been reached with Murphy and Diffenhaver regarding issues on the design of this building. And just a few other announcements. If at any time you can't hear us, by the way, because sometimes we can't tell whether the mics are getting through to you, please yell, raise your hand, and let us know, and we'll make sure we get that corrected. Agendas, you probably got them, but they're available on the table as you enter the room. There's also a sign-in sheet there, so we'd ask that you sign in before you leave tonight if you haven't already done that. Meeting is live streaming on YouTube. It will be posted immediately there, and a recording will also be available through the township website. Written minutes will be available through the website after they're approved by the board. There'll be 2 opportunities for public comment. After being recognized by the chair, we'd ask you to step up to the podium, state your name and address before addressing the board, and there is typically a 5-minute time limit. And we'll do self-introductions of the board before we get started.
Dave Rose.
Jeff Rogers.
Art Rutledge.
Bob Brown.
Jeff Reynolds.
And to my left is Todd Ziegler, the township manager. With us by YouTube is Wendy Brown, our recording secretary, and we have excused our solicitor, Tim Buck, from this meeting. And with that, we will go back to the agenda.
We had a chance to talk to Tim, make sure he's okay.
Todd did.
Okay.
He's fine.
I was making sure. It's been so long since I've seen him.
We always let him know whether or not we need him at the meeting. All right, so the first item would be the approval of our regular meeting minutes held on October the 7th. Are there questions or comments on the minutes or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the October 7th meeting minutes.
Second. So we have a motion and a second to approve the October meeting minutes. Questions before we vote? And I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. They are approved. We also have minutes from our budget workshop meeting on October the 30th. Questions or comments on those minutes? And if not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget meeting minutes.
Second.
Questions before we vote? I'll call for the vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. The budget meeting minutes are approved. You have in front of you the treasurer's report for October. Don't think there's anything unusual, anything you want to comment on?
I have nothing now.
Questions anybody has?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the October treasurer's report. Final time for questions before we vote. Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. We've approved the treasurer's report. For information, you have the actual versus budget report in front of you. I didn't see anything that jumped out of the ordinary. Their expenses are a little higher than budget over revenue, but that's because we have a lot of revenue that comes in on the last 3 months of the year and some expenditures. So it looks like it will hold true that we will have budgeted a little higher for expenses, or rather for expenses, and a little lower for revenue, which gives us a little safety. So I don't know if there's anything you had.
I have nothing to add, no.
Pretty standard. Anybody have questions on the actual versus budget for the first 3 months of the year? Okay, none. All right, we've reached the first opportunity for public comment. And we do have, I think, some that are scheduled. from Paul Smith Library. Carl? Since you're scheduled and on the agenda, we will extend you a little bit more than 5 minutes if that's good for the board, because I know you have a presentation for us. So,
All right. Thank you.
So you take the time it takes you to get through it.
All righty, thanks very much. I'm here representing the Paul Smith Library and also by extension the Mason-Dixon Library in Stewartstown. Both of our libraries are 501c3 corporations, and we've been serving the communities of Southern York County for decades. Paul Smith, for the last 24 years, was a combination of both the New Freedom and Shrewsbury libraries, and Mason-Dixon has been around for, actually, 64 years serving the communities. As member libraries, we have our own board of directors that help to manage the library. We hire our own staff. We do our own budgeting. We work with the librarian to establish programs and that sort of thing to serve the needs of the people who actually come to our library, our patrons. Back in 2022, we're members of the York County Library Association, YCL. They did a study on libraries throughout the county. There are 13 libraries in the county, of which only about 5 are member libraries. The difference between a member library and a branch library is a branch library in that system is managed by the YCL leadership in the city of York. Member libraries are managed by an individual or a separate board, and that's what we are, a member library. But they did this study back in 22. The funding for libraries is tough. The state doesn't really budget enough for libraries. The county has a tax that goes to the libraries to some extent, but that only really makes up about 1/3 of our budget. Our budget annually as a nonprofit is about $274,000. Contributions from all the municipalities, and we thank Shrewsbury Township very much for the contributions that you make to our library on an annual basis. Makes up about another 1/3, and then the final 1/3 is private donations, our book sale, which we just wrapped up last week, an annual appeal, and that kind of thing. YCL is in somewhat of a financial bind. They're looking to make up about $500,000 on an annual basis. From their study, they decided that they would like to see Mason-Dixon and Paul Smith move from being member libraries with independent boards to being branch libraries managed out of YCL's headquarters at Martin Library in York. We have considerable concerns about this change in management, basically. With the conversion from a member library to a branch, our board would be dissolved. All the decision-making would then be made out of York. Hours of the library, which we set, would then be set by York, not necessarily meeting the needs of the people here, who many of which live in or work in Maryland and really don't get back up here until late in the evening or late in the afternoon. Martin Library, for instance, in New York, is open 36 hours a week. We are open 54 hours a week. Let me see what else. One of the things that YCL told us is that the library buildings are owned by the 501c3 nonprofit corporations, both Mason-Dixon and Paul Smith. YCL would like us to turn those buildings over to them without any really reasoning for what would happen to those buildings going forward. We question whether or not it makes any sense for our libraries to become STEAM headquarters. Both of our libraries' school systems already have extensive STEAM programs, which are very expensive to run, and they want our libraries to do that kind of thing. And so what we're looking at is really asking the municipalities that support us now to continue to do so. We're meeting with the leadership of York County Library System next week to see if we can come to some sort of compromise to enable us to still maintain our local management system. So, any questions that you have?
Sure. Who does the YCL report to?
They have their own board of directors. In the past, from what I understand, I just joined the library board this year. I didn't know I was walking into this
Right.
kind of thing. But what we understand is that, in the past, member libraries attended board meetings or were invited to attend board meetings. That has not happened in the year that I've been with.
Do they
Public.
report to somebody else in the county? Or are they totally independent? So like if you
They're a 501c3
Okay.
nonprofit corporation.
So you
because
can't
they-
appeal what they want to do to?
Well, we're not sure what the relationship is between the library system and the county.
Right. that's
We
what-
had a meeting 2 weeks ago with Judy Wheeler at our library to tell her our position on this sort of thing. And she said that she's interested in following developments. For instance, how the meeting that we have next week with the YCL leadership comes out, if there's any compromise that can be negotiated.
I mean, it doesn't seem to me like you'd want to give up your buildings. You know,
We have no intention of giving up our.
Yeah, because if you do that, then you can't ever come back again. What, I know, and I do thank you, because you gave us a nice package that we were able to look at.
The second part of that is just some information.
Sure.
About the importance of the Paul Smith Library to the residents of Shrewsbury
Yeah, no,
Township.
It showed that
Almost
well.
just about 25% of our patrons live in Shrewsbury Township.
So one of the concerns was that the library would almost be forced to become a STEAM hub.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, I don't, not having any kids in school, STEAM, what, can you help me with that?
Basically, it's a very science-based,
Okay.
science, math, robotics, that kind of thing. Special classes, that kind of thing, which would seem to me to be appropriate for a Martin library that has a walkable library. Both Mason-Dixon and Paul Smith, we have very few students that come to our library because it's not walkable. And we have a great kids program in the summer with hundreds and hundreds of, mostly preschool kids that come to the library.
Well, you'd also have to take resources that serve the greater population, if you would, if you had to put a lot of it into the STEAM,
Yes,
which I
exactly.
would think the schools here should do a pretty good job of handling.
One of the people that we met, we had a meeting yesterday afternoon about the meeting next week. And one of the people was a member of the school board who was telling us that the STEAM program is very successful at Southern York County School District.
What are you looking to, or what do you think that, as a municipality, what can we do?
Well, at this point, I think the two things that we're looking for is your continued financial support. And also, if push comes to shove, perhaps a letter from the municipality to the YCL leadership or their board stating your preference for the library to maintain local leadership.
I would think that's something that,
I would think so.
as a board,
Yeah.
we'd be willing to.
What authority they have to
I
tell
think
you
we'd be
that-
willing to do that for
Okay.
sure.
We would
Go
I
ahead,
have,
Heather,
I have a question.
Yeah, David.
please.
What's your motivation in wanting, which you don't appear to, but what would your motivation be to join the York County?
We're a member of the system. Okay?
But they basically want to,
Take you over.
by all means, hostile takeover the library system in
Yeah,
Southern York
basically,
County.
Yeah, we're a member of the system, and we share some resources with them. For instance, if you go into the YCL website and you want to reserve a book, and it's not at Paul Smith or it's not at Mason-Dixon, you can reserve it, and they will ship it to your library.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a service that they provide. They also handle all of our payroll and some of our accounting services.
So you may have to go outside of that.
If we do not agree to becoming a branch, they
Yeah.
will basically kick us out of the York County Library system.
And I believe I heard you say at the beginning of your presentation, they're trying to do this because they're trying to offset a $500,000 deficit in their budget.
Yes.
So they would take the funds that we're giving to our library and use them for other libraries in the county. If,
We don't.
in that scenario.
Yeah. What the other branch, all the branches are required to do fundraising. And all that money then goes to the York County Library system. How that money is divided out and divvied out, I'm not really that familiar
Okay.
with.
all right,
So if as an individual, we make a donation, it might not stay with the local library.
Yeah. Right now, if you make a contribution to the Paul Smith Library, it stays with the Paul
Okay,
Smith
but
Library.
if they went to this,
If
it
it went to a
would.
branch system, it would go to the York County Library system as a whole.
Who owns the books, computers, and everything else that's in your branch?
We own the books.
Okay,
The computers are shared, I think, with YCL. That's another one of the services that we get, for which we pay them a service fee.
it would be difficult for you to stand alone.
It would be very difficult for us to stand alone.
Plus, if
We
you're-
would probably lose, we know that we would probably lose state funding, because according to the state library people that we've talked to, you can only have one library system per county by Pennsylvania law. So we would be basically kind of losing about a third of our budget.
I think a good thing to explore would be, can our state representatives or any of those help if you determine that the YCL answers to the county in some way, then, I mean, we do have county contacts and we do have state contacts that we all know and interface with from time to time. So there may come a time where that would be helpful to you. I think the will of the board would be to like to see you stay as it is.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we have been in contact with every municipality that we serve.
Good.
Paul Smith and Mason-Dixon, so basically all of southern York County. We've been in contact with Judy Wheeler at County Commissioner's office. We've been in contact with Christian Phillips Hill.
Okay, that's who we were
Katie-
thinking
you
of.
got all the right
Yeah.
names there.
Yeah.
You're
Oh,
talking
no,
to-
it's like, well, whether you know, somebody might know, you know. I was chairman of the York County Rail Trail Authority for 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've worked with the county
Good.
significantly over time.
Who appoints the York County Library Board that would then overtake Paul Smith if it were to become a branch?
I'm not sure who or how they appoint their board members. If you can go to the YCL website and you can see who the board members are. There are no librarians on their board. Most of them are people from the finance community.
Are the two libraries, is the titling such that they can't force you to turn the buildings over to them?
They're owned by the 501c3 corporation. They
Oh.
cannot force us to
Okay.
divest ourselves of the,
So you are a separate 501c
yeah,
from
yes, we are.
the York County?
Yeah,
Okay.
as is Mason-Dixon. Yeah, we're separate 501c3s. We own the building.
Because when I first read your letter, it almost made me think that they take you over, then they sell the property to raise money.
Not sure what their reasoning is.
That was my worry or
Yeah.
concern.
Well, that's my concern too.
Yeah.
Other questions? Anybody?
I just have two questions out
Sure,
of curiosity. Did I understand you correctly? Martin Library is only open 36 hours a week for
Yes.
the city of York?
Yes,
And you're open 54?
54.
Okay. And the other thing is, do you know what the dollar value is that they receive from the county each year? If you don't, that's fine. I didn't know if
Okay.
you knew that.
That's probably the one piece of data I not.
Okay.
did
That's
not-
fine. I was just curious if you knew.
Yeah.
Is your board a volunteer board?
Yeah, it's all volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out how else they would save money to raise the 500,000.
Right, yeah.
They
I went
take our
to Pat
donations.
LaFleur, who is the official Shrewsbury Township representative on our library board. I'm an at-large member.
Nice to see you. I haven't seen your face, but I've seen your name often.
Anything else?
Any questions?
Well, I guess we would leave it to you to tell
We
us
will keep you informed.
when it might be appropriate. We certainly can write letters, we can talk to the people that we know, we can use whatever influence, little as it might be, but to try to help along the way and even join forces with the other municipalities. We obviously know all of them and their people, and we could certainly all combine to show our support as well.
All right, I
And
appreciate
thank you
that
for
very
what you
much.
do. We appreciate your effort.
Thank you.
And was it Pat?
Pat,
And
yeah.
Pat's as well. Thank you. Appreciate what you do.
All right. Gentlemen,
you.
thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for coming out. We appreciate it. Yeah, I don't understand how they save money either. Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
they would take what we're giving them and then
Yeah.
use it other places.
Todd knows how to get in touch with you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I also have on the list here from Hamilton Overlook. Do we have anybody that wants to speak to that, Todd, or do you just?
I'll address that.
Okay,
I talked to the president of the HOA, and I told him they're welcome to attend. I didn't think it was necessary, but they were welcome to. Let me pull up here just so that you can.
so we want to handle that waiver request now?
Yeah, if we could.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're good. That's okay with everybody?
Yep. Just let me pull that up here and. Come on here, mouse. Sorry, my mouse doesn't want to work here. There we go. All right, I'll blow this up a little bit. You can see a little better. This is Hamilton's Overlook. Out in this road leads out to Campbell Road. This is the rear of the development, down by Weathersfield Park in New Freedom Borough. And this is the open space preservation area. This basin here is located, as you can see, in between the homes. Everyone's yards and their property lines go to the center of the basin. And then the majority of this basin belongs to this single lot back here, which is the higher acreage. These properties all, their property lines right down in here. Anyway, I went back and looked through records. I can't believe it's this long ago, but actually back on July 5th of 2017, we had the developer at that time approach the board to get a waiver to remove the requirement for fencing around both basins, around the entire basin itself. The developer at that time was still proposing a fence, which is where you see this red line here. And the only logic we can think of, I was out there with our engineer, Jeff Schill. These are shorter slopes. These have a much longer slope, so they appear to be much steeper. So that's what we're thinking is, some of these homes you come out, there's not a whole lot of backyard. But nonetheless, this area is proposed. The HOA nor the property owners that abut the stormwater basin want to have that fence. So because it's under the SALDO, the Subdivision Land Development Ordinance, it's already been approved on a plan, the board would have to approve that to be waived. As I said, Jeff Shue, the township engineer, and myself, we were both out. We don't see any reason why it's necessary to keep it there. About the only thing it does is keeps a ball from rolling into the basin.
So
Is
the
there
fence is
water-
there now.
It's not there. They started to install it, but they stopped.
They
There's
never
no fence.
built it over the last 7 years?
No, because the stormwater basins are not even closed out yet. There's still sediment. Well, they did just convert them over. But
All the
yeah, because
fence,
these were sediment basins. They don't get converted over until the last house is built.
How?
is there standing water in it? All
No.
the- So it's normally dry.
Yeah, typically in 2-3 days they should be dry.
And to answer, the the fence is all sitting there piled up at the end of the court, so they were ready to install it, basically.
And so we've talked to every property owner.
We did get a, I guess you would call it.
That's actually what initiated it, isn't it?
Yeah, they, the HOA, and they did get, requests signed by each property owner, acknowledging that it would be removed.
Does this pose any type of a safety risk to not have the fencing in the event of a storm, whatever else, somebody falling into it?
No, because, I mean, frankly, they could walk around the other side of the,
Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't know what to tell you.
You can get in from the other side, that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not a
whether
secure
it's an
fence.
adult or a kid, they don't know the boundaries of their yard, if that's a concern,
Plus-
then we should have it the whole way around the
Is
base.
it just a split rail?
It was a split rail, and I think they were gonna do the, if you remember down at,
Fencing?
with the fencing,
Okay.
split rail,
Okay.
the black fencing, so you don't really see the wire fencing,
All right,
so.
those are the questions I had.
Yeah, I just wanted, you don't expose us to any liability then.
One thing.
Okay.
No,
We need a motion?
yes.
And we need one that would just,
What you would say, the motion should basically state that, you're
Approve the waiver
granting
request.
a waiver request to, remove the requirement to install the fence around Basin One as recorded in the plan. something to
So
that
moved.
effect.
That was a very well said motion. Thank you, Todd.
we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the waiver request for the stormwater basin fencing at Hamilton's Overlook as it sits in front of you. Questions? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. The waiver request on the fencing is approved. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this time? Sure, come on up.
Hi, Linda Apuzzo, 16756 Mount Airy Road. As you know, I've been here a number of times for a number of different issues. I want to start by reading some information into the public record,
let-
and then I'm going to ask a couple of questions.
Let me, maybe I can interrupt you for a minute. We're prepared, we've got all your information, we've all read that. We're going to actually delegate this down to the sewer commission for them to look at and make a recommendation to the board.
Here's what I'd like to ask. I emailed all of you. I never received a response from any of you. I looked online to see the agenda. The agenda was not there. I looked online to see the sewer committee, the members of the sewer committee, when the sewer committee meets. None of that was there. I want to know what the process is for me to be able to subdivide my house off, sell my house, move out of here, and then have the property developed. That's all I want. I want to understand how to do that. Phil and I have been working for 3 years on things that would have put a lot of houses there and made me a lot of money. I don't care about money. I need to move for my health. If I can sell my house for whatever the heck I can sell my little subdivided house for, get out of Shrewsbury, and you guys can fight as much as you want to figure out how the rest of the property gets subdivided. All I want, all we were looking at is 2 freaking lots going
But-
in my pasture.
But the problem is you aren't the only person that is looking for that, and there are very few EDUs available at this time, as you know. So the proper thing for us to do is we have a committee that's been established and trying to move forward with that, is to have them look at it and come back to the board and say, this is what we recommend.
But-
We're not stopping you from selling your property.
With all due respect, Art, for 3 years, I've been waiting for EDUs. for them to open up, oh, we're gonna buy some back, oh, we're gonna do whatever, okay? Finally, Chesapeake Properties was asked and said they would sell me 3 EDUs at $15,000. Fine, I'm a retired person living on Social Security and my 403B. But right now, it's more important to me to be able to get off my property where I can live in a safer environment than spending having $45,000 more and being in a nursing home because I paralyzed myself this time when I fell. That's what I'm asking. I want a procedure. Tell me what to do and we'll do it.
Okay, I will tell you the procedure then.
Okay.
The priority for EDUs is deemed by the sewer committee would go to people who have a plan that has been approved and is waiting for EDUs. That's who's number one on the list to get EDUs. We've never seen a plan from you. We've never, looked at anything, and we do have people that have approved plans that are waiting for an EDU.
But are they going to buy those EDUs?
Absolutely.
From the township or from an
The
individual?
It doesn't matter.
No, it
all
does matter.
Yeah, it all has to be approved by the township.
I understand that, but it does matter because I understand that there are other people who have been waiting for EDUs, okay, for a long time
Yes.
as well. One of them just died. What I'm saying is, in order to move this forward, I decided to spend a heck of a lot of money to try to buy EDUs. Now, I don't understand what me buying those EDUs has to do with other people who may be on the list before me. Are they going to buy those EDUs from Chesapeake Properties, or are those EDUs going to sit there?
Oh, no, there are people that are
That are
waiting.
negotiating with Chesapeake Properties right now for EDUs? I'd love to know their names.
I have no idea if they're negotiating.
That's my point. That's my point. My point is that there is a lot of talk about EDUs. I have been here since 2021, listening to talk. This time I have a concrete plan to go sign some paperwork and have them. Then I can own them just like Chesapeake Properties is owning them, and whether I decide to use them at some future date can be determined then. I just want to spend $45,000. That's all I want to do.
Well, just to tell you, when the way that works now is that when somebody, if they do have EDUs that they're sold, they have to be used typically within a year or you lose them, and you lose the deposit that you paid for them.
Well, that would be fine, because then it would, in a year, we would hopefully get you to approve a simple little plan to put 2 houses on 2 acres of land.
But the best thing to do would be to get that plan to us now.
Well, we have put plans through before, I believe.
No, we've never seen a plan.
Did we send one thing in? We sent in a sketch. That was when we were looking at 8 units, correct? And I was told we were going to need an engineering survey. We were going to need to have the property tested for water,
Yes,
et cetera.
that's correct.
Okay, so something was submitted.
No, I don't,
Yes.
not a formal, there's never been a formal plan
The
for it.
process for subdivision plans is there's a pre-app consultation. That's where you come in with staff, which is the engineer, county planning commission, zoning officer, and you come in with a sketch plan, or else we just bring up a plan. You don't have to submit anything formally, and you can just have an open conversation, say, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Does the zoning ordinance allow me to do that? That's a pre-app consultation. That's what Phil did with the 8 lots. From that point, then, you have direction, and then you would decide whether or not you're going to move forward with a formal subdivision. That's when there's a formal submission. That's when there's an engineered plan by a surveyor that's submitted. That's when it becomes a formal. We have many people that come in for the pre-app consultation and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this with my property or whatever, and we may never ever hear from them again for a variety of reasons, but
So, okay, let me understand this. So, we need to do a informal discussion with the plan, correct? That's step
The
one?
pre-app would be
The
step one.
pre-app, okay. After that is done, then I get the surveyor there and we submit
The
a
formal
formal
subdivision plan.
And then after that is approved, you allow me to purchase the E EDUs?
What the board has done in the past is if that plan is submitted, formally submitted, they have allocated, and again, that's not my decision, that's the board's. But in the past, they have allocated EDUs or approved transfers for plans that are before the board and planning commission. Now, as Art mentioned, and we've been doing this for quite a few years, the agreement is even if they're transferred, because we just had 20 that were transferred from
Right.
Chesapeake Realty, and that agreement is written that they have to be used within 2 years, and if not, they come back, they come to the township.
Okay,
So, and the reason being is, for example, that 20, as you know, EDUs are desperately needed by everyone.
right.
You don't want someone buying some that are available today and sitting them on their property and then no one ever subdivides.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason for it.
So right now, my next step, I just want to be sure I understand this, is Phil talks to you.
Yeah.
Then Phil submits a plan.
Phil knows the process very well.
Okay, I
He
mean, the
does, yeah.
process is not on the website at all for a regular citizen like me to understand. And of course, then I emailed you guys, I didn't hear anything, you know, which I felt was incredibly unprofessional.
I think you know that you've gotten lengthy responses from me to prior emails, and there really wasn't anything I could add to that, but you have received responses in the past from me.
On completely different matters, Art.
No, it was
Not
on
on
ED.
this matter of the transfer of Chesapeake.
Well, no, not that one
That's,
specifically, but
but so how was I supposed to know?
Well, and I apologize that I didn't respond to you, but I'm trying to set up a sewer committee meeting.
And when
And-
will
and-
that be?
And I don't know, I'm trying to set it up. I'm waiting for everybody to get back to me.
Okay, so I'm looking at, what, another 6 months if this process goes well?
No, Phil can bring in for the December, let me see where we're at here. Let me pull up the calendar. All right. The next staff review meeting will be December 3rd. So Phil, if he gets an application, there's no fee for the application or for the pre-app consultation. If that's into us by 12 noon next Tuesday, November 12th,
Okay,
it will be discussed with staff at their December 3rd meeting. And again, that's where you and Phil, or if you have an engineer, you come in and you meet with the zoning officer, the engineer, whatever, you talk about, hey, this is what I want to do. It's not required to have a sketch, it doesn't have to be professional, but it's helpful so that we can see, you know, hey, this might be a site distance issue, or, you know, you're in the wetlands there, or the CEA, but
Yeah.
it's just the opportunity to talk through for people to decide whether it makes sense for them to move forward.
and the date on that again, December 3rd or 30th?
December 3rd.
December 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay,
We always meet the first Tuesday, staff.
okay. And so then the,
The application is due 3 weeks prior, and the reason it's 3 weeks is because when there's a detailed plan, it takes that time for everybody to get through, you know.
and so after December 3rd, let's just say
Mm-hmm.
it's satisfactory to you, then does it go on the agenda?
No,
for
then what you do is you will go to an engineering firm, surveyor, and you go with your sketch plan, and typically, most of them that are around this area or in York have dealt with Shrewsbury Township, they know the process. They get the plan together, and they submit that, and that comes back to staff again, okay?
So we're in January now.
Oh, yeah, you definitely, because again,
I
and
just
what
need
I
to
would do-
understand.
Yeah, and what I would do now, it doesn't, there's no harm in you talking to an engineer or surveyor now.
Okay.
You know, let them know what you're kind of looking at, and kind of let them know you may be coming to him. But, you know, for a 2-lot subdivision, you know, typically it's not too involved, but a lot of it depends on your, and Phil can tell you this too, depends on your surveyor or engineer, if they put together a well-prepared plan. Unfortunately, we have some that do the bare minimum, and then we have a punch list of things, and then they have to go back and charge you more money and more time. So, but, you know, Phil, would you agree? I think it's fair to say that once a plan is submitted to staff, and based along, would it be 2 lots along the road frontage?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're probably not looking at more than 3 months. And again, that all depends on, again, your architect or your engineer, your surveyor, how well the planning puts together.
This has been kind of an evolution of how it's rolled through with Linda. And, you know, I'm not full-time involved in her project, but I jump in whenever I can, however I can. And at one time, it was the idea to develop it as much as possible if the EDUs were available, and I brought in a sketch with like 8 lots. And it was very complicated. It was going to take a lot of time. And Linda just kept getting in more and more in a position where she needed to move. She wanted to get done. And, you know, as that progressed, I got to the point, Linda, you know, chop your house off and sell it and deal with the rest of it later on, you know, and you're not going to give up all your investment. To sell the house right now the way it is and the property the way it is, it's just not a really good situation. I mean, it's on a septic. Doesn't even have a sewer connection for the house. So I suggested just subdivide the house off, have the EDUs with the rest of the property, take the time to do that, and then in the future, or as that got done, sell those lots. And that was the idea behind going to Chesapeake and getting just 3 simple EDUs, so the house could be subdivided and the other 2 would be there, whether somebody else wanted to buy it and do the 2 lots, or she holds on to it and does the 2 lots. And that's what happened,
Yeah,
where we are.
and again,
As far as getting a sketch in here by next week, that's not a problem at
Right.
all. It's a breeze. The
I
sewer
think
main's
the
out
important
front.
thing is that you have 3 EDUs lined up,
Right.
ready to transfer
Right.
when you get a plan.
And that was the other thing she was concerned about, and I was too, about doing a plan and doing a formal submittal and then not having the EDUs. And you know,
Now, I can't speak for this board, but maybe the board can remind me, as long as there was a plan, I am not aware that the board has ever denied a transfer.
Not that I can recall.
Yeah, not that I
I think you're
recall.
correct.
and it wasn't only the board, it was also, is Chesapeake going to stay on board? You know, they flex.
Yeah.
To be in all honesty,
I
they
understand,
flex.
Yeah,
Bill,
So,
when you looked at it, I mean, there is some CEA, there's probably some wetlands in there. Do you know it'll support?
There's absolutely
No.
no wetland on my property.
across the
There-
street.
I just kind of thought it probably flowed through under the road and all there, but it
is-
doesn't.
There is a
Spring house. There's a spring house.
that collects water and it goes under the road.
Okay.
That would be part of
The house.
house. The pasture is bone dry.
Okay,
Before Mount Airy Road was put in, there have been some damp areas at the back end of my pasture. When that road went in and they dried the spring up, that back end of my pasture is bone dry.
I've been getting beat up about that for years.
Yeah, no, he did. I mean, he
that's
had-
right, you put that road in,
I put the
didn't you?
road in, so she,
Yeah, and I made him hook me up to city water
Yeah,
that
yeah.
day.
So you do
I
have,
watched my spring
so water
go
is
down.
there.
yeah, it's public water's already connected, but the sewer's not. And the sewer goes across the front of the property. It'd be real easy to draw a couple lines. It doesn't take an engineer, it's a survey, it's a simple plan. You know, you're just drawing lines. So, you know, I told Linda that we can get something in, get it moving forward and try to get her where she needs to be. I told her also I wanted to meet with her and look at some other issues there because of, you know, the house and the site needs some attention to be more marketable, in my opinion. And I think it's worth doing that a little bit too, because if you try to sell it right now, you know, there's only so much she's been able to do on her own with the property. So that's it.
Right. Yeah, I think the only thing that, and I thank you, Phil, that we looked at is, we just want to make sure they get used. So you do have them lined up, that would think you would have some time to go through the beginning of the process so you can get them locked in, if that makes,
That makes
Makes
perfect
sense to
sense.
you?
I understand.
okay.
So, thank you.
And again, I apologize, I didn't really have anything to tell you because I didn't have a meeting lined up. So I do apologize for that, and, you know, certainly feel free to give me a call anytime you have questions.
And so you will be having, so the sewer committee
The-
has
The
to see
sewer
it
committee's
first?
not a, yeah, they're not a, it's not a public meeting. But, you know, the important thing is, and the good thing is you are on the list
Okay,
for EDUs
okay.
for the future. But if you're ready to do them now and you have them lined up, you know, it's probably all
Okay.
feasible, but,
All right, thank you, guys.
Okay,
all right?
thank you. And just direct to Todd if you have any questions, because sometimes we assume he's getting back, and sometimes we ask, and sometimes we cover bases, but sometimes it falls through a little bit of a crack, so do that. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board at this time? Seeing no one else, we'll go back to the agenda. And next item is subdivision and land development. I don't think we have any ordinances, right, Todd?
That's correct. The Audi just need to reapprove the preliminary final land development plan. It is ready to be recorded. The only reason we couldn't is because it's past 90 days since you did the last reapproval.
So we just need a
So
motion
if
to
you can make a
reapprove.
motion to reapprove it
So
conditionally.
moved.
Yep.
Second.
You have a second, motion and a second that we would reapprove the preliminary final land development plan for Aldi. Questions? We shall vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
5 votes to the affirmative, that reapproval is granted. And we have a second one, Todd?
Yep, and I'll share that with you here. This one's pretty straightforward and simple. We've already approved, the board's already approved this plan.
This is just
and
the
signed
road.
it. The only change that's taking place to this plan, and Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, is the plan was initially submitted was one project. It's now been identified in stages, stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. The road that will pass through the township, Concord Road, is in stage 1. Even though it doesn't affect Shrewsbury Township, the plan had been revised since it was last here to reflect this, and it was approved conditionally by New Freedom Borough. So it's really more of a formality that we have on the record that we reapproved it, so, with that change.
And refresh my memory, is that a private road then, or are we gonna?
We're going to be, it's going to be dedicated to us, but we have an agreement with New Freedom Borough that they're going to maintain it until any of the farm in the township's developed.
Okay.
So they're gonna maintain it just until stage 1 is developed? right?
No,
All the way through until.
all the way
anything-
until any subdivision
That-
takes
that's
place
Oh,
in
you're
the
right.
township
You're right.
portion. Yep.
Okay.
I forgot that, you're right. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second that we would reapprove the preliminary plan as you have it in front of you for New Haven. Questions? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
5 votes to the affirmative. We have reapproved that plan. And that moves us to a security reduction, Todd, and I think you gave us
Yeah, we
a
have,
copy here.
get my letter here from Crescent. Yeah, they're requesting the 5th reduction to their subdivision bond. This is for Hamilton's Overlook. The current balance is $654,166.50. Keystone, also known as Crescent LLC, was requesting a reduction of $309,755. That's their request. I gave you a spreadsheet from CS Davidson this evening, and they were out, they did their inspection, and they're recommending to the board that you approve a reduction, but not in the amount that they requested, instead in the amount of $557.90.
And that's just due to outstanding.
There's a
need to be
lot.
maintained.
Yeah, there's, one thing has to do with, some stormwater basins that are in the, well, we already talked about them, Basin 1 and 2. But they have to do base repair to the roads, they have some curb and sidewalk repair to do, they have to do the final asphalt overlay. He did do some adjustment because we did already do a reduction for the stormwater inlet repairs. Because they made them, we did the inspection, they looked fine, but Ryan and company went out and they did a reinspection of them because we also had to reinspect the roads and the curbs and sidewalks, and some of those are failing. So Jeff adjusted to cover those as
Okay.
well. So that's why it's not the full 390,000.
Okay.
Now, did you say 270?
Yeah, if you look
I'm
here.
seeing 221 on the November 6th letter.
Okay, my apologies. You're right. I'm looking at with
I just- I-
the contingency.
For the
It's
purposes of my
221.
motion, I
My
wanted to
apologies. Yep.
be
No,
as
you're right.
precise as
I
possible.
was looking at the contingency of the balance. Yes, it would be or the original amount. Yeah, I'm sorry.
221, 573.90.
Correct.
All
Yep. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
You may.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bond reduction for the Hamilton Overlook in the amount of $221,573 and the ever-important 90 cents.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to reduce the bond by the $221,573.
And 90 cents.
And 90.
Sorry.
90 cents. Wait a minute, I think I have that on me. At any rate, questions before we vote? Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative, we have reduced it accordingly. And that brings
Tell
us,
them not to spend it all in one place.
to reports. You have the manager's report in front of you. Is there anything you want to add to that, Todd?
No, we'll talk about the one thing later. It's on the agenda, the grant award. But other than that, there's nothing in particular. No.
Any questions from the board for Todd on his report? All right, hearing none, we'll go to the planning and zoning officer's report. Are there anything you want to highlight, Todd?
Again, no. Majority of these are now with the Court of Common Pleas.
Who's the holdup there?
collection.
Is that our attorney or is that the court? or-
Well, they're telling me they've already filed them, so they're just in there in the court system. I don't know.
So our solicitor has done.
I know sometimes they can take up to a year.
Okay, so they've done
Before they
what
do
they
anything
can
with
do
them.
to move them
Yes.
forward.
Yes. Yep.
Questions from the board on anything? Jeff, did you want to ask about handy dandy or?
No, I'll leave it go.
Okay,
I guess it's appropriate at this point in time just to announce, since we're under this report, that the
Yep.
MMC Municipal, which is our current zoning and code enforcement agency, Cliff Tinsley, he provided the township with required 60-day notice that he's going to be ending his service contract with the township. So we already started thinking and talking to some other folks to pick that up. So he will be carrying through to January 5th. But it's just simply because he has another municipality and just way too much of a workload for him. And, he's leaving on good terms. And he said that if January 5th comes and we don't have anyone on board yet, or we're not quite up to speed, that they will continue to help us out. So we won't be left hanging high and dry.
any questions from anybody? All right, moving on, you have a maintenance department report. I think that was next. Any questions or anything you want to highlight there, Todd?
No, again, I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. Magnolia Drive, that's been on there for a while, where the road's selling just off of Windy Hill Road.
Right,
And that's actually, it's a joint project. The majority of it's with Shrewsbury Borough because of the sewer main. We are doing some assistance with the excavation. We're gonna resurface the road and everything. But, we did start that, I guess Friday. Was it Friday? Yeah. So that is moving along. I don't know if it's quite as fast as they were thinking it would be, but, I believe the trench is 12 feet. That's how deep the sewer line is, so.
So that's gonna take approximately how long?
Well, Mike said probably at least 2 weeks.
But
But we are plating everything at night, I believe, that traffic can pass through.
So we're not closing the road or,
No, it only impacts about 4 homes, and they're aware that we're doing the work. And everything,
Okay.
So, yeah.
and did we have any, you said there might have been some updates on the park maintenance. I don't know if you had a chance to look at that. It's not critical if we did.
No,
That's okay.
no, I didn't get a chance to talk to them, so.
Questions for anybody else? We have the CS Davidson report. There were no changes to that, so. And then you have the agenda and minutes from the, I guess, last Recreation Commission meeting. Jeff, you serve on that. Anything you
I
want to?
missed the last meeting. I was out of town.
That's right. I remember that you were. I was going to ask them to clarify. They have a thing in here where they talk about pickleball, and the participants pay $20 to $25 a month. The group pays $200, but but they don't get anything back if they can't use the facility because something else kicks them out of it. Is that $200 a total number? Do you know?
I don't know. That's the first I even heard
Yeah.
that number.
Because I would hope that, they're not paying $200 and not getting to use it, so I guess that's a total number.
That I couldn't tell you.
Said no money is refunded if pickleball sessions are used for rentals or other activities. I know there's a lot of
I know they get kicked,
competition for that gym.
right. Well, they get kicked, apparently the football people get kicked out
Yeah.
quite often.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Hopefully that $200 is for a whole session or something and not each time they use it, because they should get the money back
Right.
if they're denied the use. But I guess we'll leave that to them to worry about. Might be something worth asking for you at another meeting. Anybody else have any questions?
By way of reports, we did have it'll come to me, my apologies. Excuse me. A wellhead protection meeting
Oh, okay.
with Shrewsbury Borough
Okay.
within the last month.
Yeah.
We met down at the one well, what's that building called? Is it,
Well, it's there behind.
Well House?
Down there behind the John.
Behind Chick-fil-A.
Okay.
And basically the purpose of the meeting was to see if there was a workaround or an easier way to seal off the water retention area that was put in when they did the exit 4 improvement. In the event of a spill anywhere on East Forest from 83 to the traffic light, it would all run down towards that well. And they had to put that in to protect the well when they did the road improvements. They came out and tested it and realized the gear ratio was ridiculous. And how long did they say they sat there and tried to spin it for like 5 or 10 minutes? And
Well, that was.
it only moved the gate a very small amount. And it makes sense when you're talking about having a lot of different water pressure in there if it was full. So that way it's not, running, as quickly, which is the reason for it from what we understand. But we were trying to figure out if there was an easier way in the event of an emergency to get that thing shut so that the water couldn't get into the creek and into the main water supply. So we're still waiting on PennDOT, I think, to get some more information on that. Brad was in attendance too. But that's pretty much it.
Well, to the meeting about that was primarily because the plans have never been established yet for, in an emergency,
Who's supposed to do what,
what,
yeah.
how it's being done. And they're working on finalizing a lot of that stuff, from
Yeah.
what I understood, out of it. Out of the PennDOT guy.
I noticed they sent the notices out for a re-inspection of the wellheads and all. It's kind of the first time around since the initial. Any resistance to that they mentioned, or?
We, actually, I may have misspoke. We couldn't technically have a meeting because we didn't have a quorum.
You had a gathering.
It was several members of the committee looking at the different
Okay,
things there.
okay.
So we couldn't actually do any business, like approving the minutes and things of that nature. But Brian is looking to set one up, probably for December or first thing in January. When I say first thing, it's normally the third Wednesday of the month, but anyway. But no, we didn't really
Brian may have-
get any additional information.
Brian may have said something if he really got any resistance. I was just
I would
curious.
think. I would
Okay.
think.
All right. Well, thank you for the report. Appreciate that. We got an extra one. We got fire and EMS. I know there is a countywide
Burn ban.
burn, right? And we don't need to do anything separate since it's countywide. Okay.
And that's through November 30th, unless they otherwise extend it.
Unless we get a lot of rain, huh? Emergency management, anything you want to add, Stan?
Stan Walters, your emergency management coordinator for the township and the 4 boroughs within it. I put some copies of the burn ban on the table in the back,
Okay.
so if you want to have those. So I'm not sure how many people were aware that when we had the tornado of August 2023, the radio tower located on Woodland Drive in Shrewsbury Borough was affected by that when a tree took out the guy lines on one side of the tower, causing a collapse. And so through this past year, the borough has been working to get a replacement tower up. And I'm happy to say that the concrete pad for the new tower is now in the curing stage for 30 days, which some has already gone. And at the end of that time, a tower erecting company, in fact, the same company that took the tower down up where it came from, is going to build it. It's a 120-foot freestanding guyless tower this time. This tower is used for the benefit of the SCADA system for the borough for monitoring their water system. But in addition to that, EMA's interest in it is that amateur radio equipment is installed there that we use as vital communications during emergencies. So that the new tower should go up and be available for the equipment to be installed, hopefully before the weather gets too cold. In addition to that, we also had some time ago had a failure of another ham radio antenna located at the Shrewsbury Borough building at the main EOC there. And this past Saturday, we had a half a dozen volunteers, including yours truly, who spent about 4.5 hours taking that down and putting the replacement up to reestablish high frequency capability from the borough building. It allows us to communicate directly to PEMA headquarters in Harrisburg without the need for cell phones or sophisticated radios. And when we did the test of the new antenna, we contacted another amateur radio station in Hungary. So we're pretty sure it's working. So we had a good contact. Election day.
The country of Hungary?
Pardon me? The country of Hungary, correct.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Do you have that same ability here?
Not currently. We do have a donated radio that's capable of that, but currently we don't have a plan yet for putting that
Okay.
type of antenna up. Well, I'll talk about our tower here in a second.
Okay.
We did have a smooth election day in our area. I was not aware of any incidents that occurred at polling places. And we're a little bit late on the emergency operations plan review. This year, 2024, was our biannual review. Not sure if we'll get done, but early in the next year, hopefully we'll be done with that. And then the tower here, our volunteers, our EMA volunteers, we've spent some time looking at the tower, and we need to do some measuring and drilling of the spar, the support arm that goes across to hold some of the antennas. So we have all the parts in the EOC now, and so we'll work with Todd and the roads crew when we're ready to bring the bucket truck up and put that up, but we're getting closer. Yes, did you have any questions for me at all?
Anybody? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. You have the planning commission report in front of you. We did have questions on that. We did have a meeting of the ad hoc committee for short-term rentals. We have through some work from Todd and I guess Marcy, we did have a draft ordinance. We took a look at that, and I think there were some comments back and forth, so I think there's a new draft ordinance coming to the committee to review.
We have a solid structure, we'll call it that.
Yes, yeah. That's come a long ways. There's a very weak ordinance in how we were handling short-term rentals and a lot of questions about definitions, other issues that were there, so we are trying to clean all that up and do a good job with that ordinance. Anything else from that, Todd? Or Jeff, because you were on that too. Jeff sits on that committee as I do. And sewer committee, I think we noted that you're in the process as a poll out to try to find a date that works for everybody so that we can get together and have a meeting there, and just got to catch up on what's going on in general and what else we might be able to do to force some EDUs out of somewhere. I think that's the end of the committee reports. Supervisor comments. You have my report. Noted the LGAC meeting. There were 4 things that we reviewed. 2 of those were recommended for approval and 2 were recommended for denial. One close by was Hopewell Township. They had like what I guess we thought was a pretty clumsy sign ordinance that just needed a good bit of work on it. So that one was one that was rejected. Any comments from anybody, supervisors?
Yeah, about the election, I was amazed at many locations around the country where lines were like 4 hours long. And so I was very pleased to see how well organized our voting polls, our voting places are here. In the morning, I went to the church that's up on the hill where Kmart used to be, and I was about 9:30 in the morning, and there was really not much of a line at all. Everything was going through smoothly. People were coming and going. And then yesterday about 5:30, I visited the New Hope Officials Church. And I was also pleased to see that there was basically not much of a line at all, and people were coming and going. Also, I thought it was cute at New Hope where they had a station where you could buy food if you wanted to. And so overall, it looks like we have real nice facilities for voting to offer our residents.
Good, thank you. Hopefully nobody experienced long lines and got to vote.
I was in and out in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I saw they were prepared for massive lines, and apparently they had some earlier in the day, but when I got there middle of the afternoon, nothing.
I
No,
think the worst was the people that got there to vote at 7 o'clock everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I know my daughter had a picture of Thistles to where it was at 7:40, so that meant the inside of the building was full, and they was all the way out the sidewalk
Wow.
and back, standing. But that, like I said, I think it's a case where it was
Everybody came at the same
7 o'clock, you know, the ones that had to hurry up and be the first.
Yeah, I think I voted about 10:30, and it was
Yeah.
pretty smooth walk through. But they had 3 machines to enter your ballot. I assume they were dispersing them pretty equally, so I
Yeah.
noted mine was 333. So that
I
was,
feel like there's only been 2 in the past.
it has, they
Yeah.
had an extra
Yeah.
one. So that was about 1,000 people that had voted there by 10:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they seemed to be set up for it, handled it, had a lot of poll security people, they called it, that I guess were watching for any
Irregularities.
irregularities. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Anything else? The good of them. All right, returning to this, I think our speed study is concluded on Mount Airy Road. Tom
Yeah,
or Ryan, either one.
Yeah, what I'll note here is we wrapped up the speed study. We pretty much have everything wrapped up on the summary of the state police reports. The only thing we're waiting on is the engineering report through LTAP, which is through PennDOT. Instead of piecemealing things here, there, and everywhere, I think what I'd like to do is just give it to you all as one comprehensive package, so you have everything in
I
front of
think
you.
that makes sense.
That's good.
So,
That-
LTAP, you know, we don't pay anything for that service through PennDOT, so it's kind of hard to call and holler and scream at them that they need to hurry up.
But they've been out and
But they've been out, they
and
were
look-
out.
looked at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's been a little over, it's probably about 6 weeks since they were out, so.
And no real comments while they were there. It's kind of, they go back and take a.
Yeah, they go back, but I know some general, just basic comments that they made is, you know, and you don't really realize until you're standing where the traffic circle used to be, but when you're coming down the hill and you're, I'll use the term loosely, banking to go around that corner, you're not banking, you're going around the corner, but it slopes down.
That's going south.
Yeah, when you're going south.
Yet the majority of the accidents.
So you're not really, it's
Up in
not
the
even
north.
level. And, you know, that's part of the problem. What I anticipate they'll probably come back with is, he said what they often do in situations like that is just put a microsurfacing on or something. But he was going back, he got information, took photos, measurements, and things like that, so.
But when you're coming north, the banking's okay.
Correct.
And that's
Yeah,
the
'cause
direction.
you're coming up and banking into that,
I
yeah.
guess we've had accidents in both directions.
Yeah, but most of them are when you're heading south.
Yeah.
I
You can
think
pick up
coming
the
out of-
speed going that way too, which is
Yeah.
gonna be a contributing factor.
So anyway, I just want to
Okay.
let you know that that's the last key component we're waiting on.
Okay.
I'd like to,
We'll look forward to that, and that gives Linda a little bit of an update on what's going on there too. So, we are continuing to look at that and see if there's something we can do to help it out. And we tried to get some expert help along the way. So,
You know, we compare the speeds going up and down that road, or north and south. And I find, my experience, because I travel that road quite a bit, is you have, when you come down the hill and cross the tracks, you have a lot of momentum. Speed limit's 30, I find, even just doing slight push on the pedal, I'm going 35 or more. But on the north end, trying to come south, it's at the top of the hill,
right.
where you haven't really gained any speed yet. So I kind of think maybe the north one ought to be moved closer to the tracks, just so you can kind of compare speeds.
Oh, you
as-
mean if we did another speed study?
Yeah, if you did another speed study, that one should have been moved further south to see what the real speed is going down the hill,
coming down the hill.
coming down the hill, going south.
Well, actually, when PennDOT did their original study, they actually recommended we increase the speed limit coming north. keep it.
Correct, 40.
I don't know if I've ever seen
Well, they
that.
would have had to change both the
Yeah,
same.
you can't have one side.
Right.
We elected that, we didn't think that made sense, so we never did that. But your natural speed, is, you know, if you just don't think about it, is to do about 35 mile an hour coming north. But that curve, if you're driving reasonably, does slow you down when you're going south. So, but not all people drive, you know, the way they should on those roads. Okay, so I think that makes sense, Todd, and we'll see a full package and be able to look at
Everything
everything we
together.
know that historically and what might be recommended going forward. Sounds good. New business, just a few things to handle. We have one EDU purchase.
Yeah, the township still has 3 EDUs, which was confirmed by Shrewsbury Borough. The field requested one for a vacant lot on Norland Way down in Russet Farms. I did talk to him earlier, and just prior to the meeting, there's 1 or 2 things we need to look at, so he's okay if we table this until at least next month.
And should we be tabling the next one as well? That's the
Yeah, we pretty much covered that already. We'll be talking about that at the sewer committee meeting, and should be able to report back on that December.
I guess our next item is we've kind of been through the budget for 2025, so we would need to authorize that to be advertised so the public would be aware that they can inspect it.
Correct.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second that we authorize advertisement for public inspection for the 2025 budget. Questions? We shall vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative. We will.
Just a note, there is no real estate tax increase, so.
Yep, good to note that. You're correct. Hasn't been for, sometime I'll have to look up how many years, but it's
Yeah,
been a long
that's been-
time.
been a long
Might be a
time.
record.
So,
I have
and
no
it is
idea, I'm just
also
saying.
probably almost the lowest of the 72
Yeah.
municipalities in York County as well. At one time, we were the lowest. I don't know that, if we're not the lowest, we're very close to it. And you want to talk about a grant, Todd?
Yeah, reason I have this on the agenda is, I need authorization from the board to authorize Art as the chair and myself as the secretary treasurer to sign the grant documents when they're received. But we did receive a $220,000 grant through the LSA statewide program, and that's funding that comes through the gambling. It's kind of a really strange program that they have, because depending on what county you're in and where the facility is, there's a separate pot of gambling funds for those facilities and counties. So they have a statewide pot of money. And I was very, very happy because it's a very competitive program, and we were awarded the $220,000, and that will be used toward constructing our first pavilion at Windy Hill Park.
Is it a matching grant, or we can use it for the total?
Well, the total project's estimated at 290,
Okay.
so we would need 70 of match. We won't hear until probably December. I don't know if we'll be successful or not, but we did apply for a $40,000 grant through York County, Marcellus Shale
To offset the
program.
70.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
But this grant itself is not matching. We would just need to add some money to it for what the
Correct.
building will probably
yeah,
cost.
it is not matching.
Right, we don't have to have a match for it.
And the motion was to allow Art
Just to
and or
authorize
yourself.
Art and myself to execute the contract.
I'd make a motion to allow Art or Todd the ability to execute the contract when it is received.
Second.
Just to correct that, it's and. We both have to sign.
Thank you, and, people don't really pay attention to articles as much as they should. A, and the are very important words in our language.
Is your second okay with that change? All right, we have a motion and Second, questions? We shall vote.
Aye.
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 5 votes to the affirmative, so we have prepared or allowed the signing of the grant.
I do just want to note here, I mentioned about being competitive. Through this award period, they awarded $346 million in projects. And in requests, it totaled $1.3 billion. So,
We've been very fortunate with grants over the past
yeah.
few years, and they're not easy.
So we're still looking for that sidewalk grant,
Yeah,
Yes,
that's a big one.
That's outstanding,
but,
too.
We'll take
I'm
the other ones
I'm
in the
holding out
meantime.
hope. This might be our year.
But it is a lot of work to apply for them, but it's good money once we get it. You have some correspondence there. One is the LGAC newsletter, and the other is from PSATS with some updates on legislation that you have and can take a look at. And other than that, is anyone who wishes to address the board, a second opportunity for, and I apologize, Brad, because I usually recognize you when we do reports, and
He didn't have anything else
went
going
right
on
by you.
Wednesday night. He's fine.
but we're happy to have you close things out.
I'll be quick. Brad Doberman, Shrewsbury Fire Company. So a couple weeks ago, went to the borough budget meeting, and they had requested some hours and requested we give them a 5-year plan. So we're gonna be working on that next couple weeks and share it with you guys as well.
Okay.
Because we have a 30-year-old engine that, right now, if we were to purchase a new engine, we're looking at 5 years till we get it. So,
5 years?
yeah, 5 years.
Jeez.
So we need to, we want to share with you guys what we're looking at, and that's expensive. So I just want to share that. But what I wanted to share is they asked for some numbers that they're going to be discussing next week at their meeting. I won't be there, so I just wanted to take that opportunity to share it with you guys. And I didn't want to put it in my group email because they're going to discuss that next week. For last year, 2023, the data we recorded for documented hours, now we use a time clock that when people come into the station, they clock in, they clock out. These hours are documented that way. There's a lot of times that people are there that they don't use the clock. Like, I'm here now, I don't go to the station and use the clock. So there's a portion of hours that are not documented. I'd probably estimate 30%. So what I'm gonna read to you now is legitimate. I can point to you what time these people were there. So last year for fundraising, we did 1,725 hours. Responses, actually being out on an emergency call, 1,643 man hours. Training, 1,423. Many years ago, treasurer of the fire department did a study and estimated that we do about a third of the time in each of those 3 categories. And that still holds pretty much true. They're pretty close. But then I'll add on to that. Administrative time, people put in the office, 772 hours. Maintenance time on the buildings, equipment, and grounds, 690 hours. Public education and fire prevention, kids coming to the fire station, us going to the schools, doing demonstrations, 410 hours. Manning the station, people coming just to be at the station because there's storms coming in. I can forward this to you, Todd, if you want.
Okay, thank you.
690 hours manning the station, and then 509 hours in meetings. And these are all where people took the time to record the time with our electronic clock. So that's a grand total of 6,237 hours that were volunteered just at our station last year. If we had to staff this, I don't know what labor costs, but the study from several years ago would be $2 to $3 million. So with the volunteers, we're getting a good bang for the no buck. Now, follow on with that, I started pulling the number for the tax credits, and this would be my 3rd year submitting. The trend I've seen now, because all of the tax credit programs through all the municipalities, it's written the same, that you have to be a member of the station off probation for 1 year. So they had to have been a member in 2023 to claim 2024. So if somebody joined in June of this year, they can't submit till next year. So the trend is significantly up, and we have 8 new members that will be submitting this year that joined last year. And nobody admits that they joined because of the tax credits, but it gets them, and they didn't join for your real estate tax credit, but it gets them in the door and keeps them there, so,
Well, it's more of an incentive now with the county and the school.
yeah. Yeah, I'd really like the state and federal, so, if you could help with that, I appreciate it. Any questions about that?
So you're having some luck recruiting.
We are. We have a boom in cadets. We probably have, I know we have more than 12. It's probably close to 14 or 15 cadets, and we consider cadets 14 through 17 years old. Once they turn 18, they're considered a crew member, and due to child labor laws, there's a lot more they can do. So we have a boom on that. Like I said, I counted 8 adults that joined last year that are now eligible and did meet all the criteria.
Right.
And these, like, compared to the county, the criteria they have to meet down here is much more difficult. So they actually have to put in the work. It's not a give me. So when you see these numbers rise, it's like, I hold their feet to the fire. I'm like, I have to be able to, if somebody asks me to prove you did this, I have to be able to show it. So these are legitimate, they put in the work, and people that last year were existing members didn't meet it, put in more work this year because they realized they left money on the table, put more work in, so.
Do you have anybody that is staying?
We do not.
So that, other than I guess that you have some of the rooms through the EMS group, and that's going well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have much exposure to them except seeing them at the station. I'm waiting about 6 months before I start pulling data to see how it's affected our medical responses.
Yep, that'll be a good thing to
But
see.
I think it's down,
Good.
which is good.
To clarify, you're looking to place an order then in 2025 for a
No,
truck?
I did not say that.
No.
Do not quote me on that.
My apologies.
No.
Can you clarify? It's gonna take 5 years to get it.
So right now, people that are ordering fire engines, it's taken 5 years.
Okay.
We have one that is 18 years old, one that is 30 years old. Right now, we just got one back. We swapped them. One is in Lancaster, getting rust mitigation done on the frame. Our 2007 was much worse than the 1994 with rust, difference in steel.
Yeah.
So a couple $1,000 to get the rust cleaned up, undercoating put on, and we're gonna send it back each year for them to clean that off, redo it, try to extend the life of them.
Okay.
But the 30-year-old engine,
It
If
feels
we-
30 years old.
well, and if we have a major problem with it, it's gonna be much more difficult to get parts.
Okay. Is there any type of a grant program from the state or federal to assist with offsetting that cost?
Not really. The state grant we get is up to $20,000.
But they're multi-million.
Engine will be probably between 900 and $1 million. Right now, that's what they are.
Okay.
Getting closer to getting the rescue truck
Yeah,
back?
we still have a drawing. We are so the rescue, everything's done, change orders are done, paint graphics are all laid out. We're just in line. So 2 years ago, when we ordered this, the wait time was 2 years, or whatever it ends up being. And people were signing on the dotted line to purchase new ones because the wait time was increasing, and every couple months they were doing a price increase of about 10%. So we just happened to be ready to do it, and we fell into that line, and we don't know where we're at in that line. So everything's done. It's just when it's our turn for ours to be
Your
built,
turn, it's your turn.
they'll start. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. That's a pretty complete update. I'm glad you're you're having some success in new people and programs. Anybody else that wishes to address the board at this time? All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.